Last fall, I experimented with some high magnification macro photography. It's a style that I've actually never got into. And I got a hold of a Nisi close-up filter, which I just screwed on the front of my 90 millimeter macro lens. And that got me into the higher magnification, which I was shooting much smaller subjects than I normally shoot. And it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. At the time, I also mentioned that I wanted to get into another style, which is wide angle macro photography, where you're photographing a subject, kind of filling the frame, but also including the background behind it. So you're showing the environment the subject lives in. So a totally different style. So I got a hold of Laowa lenses and asked them if I could try out this 15 millimeter wide angle. I mean, 50 millimeters, that's like what landscape photographers use for wide angle. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a challenge for me because it's totally different. Normally I would teach to, use your standard macro lens, fill the frame with the flower, and then include, a little bit of background around the flower, but blur out that background so that there's no distracting things happening that's competing with the main subject. So this is totally different, where I'm filling the frame with the subject, maybe on the right or left side. Typically I like to do it on the right side, and then including the background behind it so it shows the environment that the flower lives in. So totally different style. Kind of almost more like documenting a subject. So this 15 millimeter Laowa lens is a manual lens, and what that means is that there's no connections, electronic connections from the lens communicating with the camera body for adjusting your f-stop in the camera and your shutter speeds and that. You have to do that all manually on the lens, so that my f-stop, there's a ring on here which goes from f4 to f32 to adjust my depth of field, and so I do that right on the lens by adjusting it with a ring. As far as the exposure goes, the shutter speed, I have to do that manually in the camera. I have my little control here where I can control the shutter speed. So I have to uh, get that correct. And what I do is, there's different ways. You could turn on your live view and you can kind of see it as you adjust the shutter speed as it brightens and darkens. And what I do is I basically just take a shot, and then I view that image, and if it comes out too dark, then I know I need a slower shutter speed to allow more light to come in, and so I'll make that adjustment to a slower shutter speed. And if it's too bright, and then I want to let less light in, so I want to go to a faster shutter speed, so I'll make the adjustment to a faster shutter speed. And it just takes um, you know, a few shots to get it to the correct exposure. So, but again, it's all manual. You have to do all that yourself. The camera's not going to automatically do any of those things. Now, with this style of wide angle, I'm going to get in close enough, because this lens actually goes to 1:1, just like my standard macro lens. And so I can reproduce the life size of the subject onto my sensor just like I do at 1:1 with my standard lens. And so I'm going to get in super close, because with this wide angle, if I'm back a ways, that little flower, because it's a wide angle, it's going to be really small. So I have to get in super close to that flower in order to fill the frame on the right side in this image that I'm shooting. Now, once I get in, as you can see, about 1.5 inches from that subject, that's going to actually fill the right side with the flower, but then include a lot of the background on the left side, so you can see again trees and fields and stuff like that in the background. Um, this is a challenging style because you have to find an interesting flower, but also some kind of an interesting background behind it too, right? And that's where the challenge comes in, and so you have to do a little searching to get it. Now, as you can see, I'm in super close here. Now, when you're in really close like this, just like when you're shooting high magnification in really close, in order to move the tripod, 1/4 inch closer, 1/4 inch back to frame, it's difficult because these things are wedged down into the grass and the weeds and stuff, and so you can't really easily move the tripod. So I'm using the Nisi focusing rail, but I'm not using it for focusing. I'm actually using it for framing, just to move my camera closer or farther away from the subject to get the framing that I want. So I would say that if you're going to try this style, definitely get a focusing rail, because it's going to make it much easier for getting your subject, framing your subject forward and backward with your camera. I can just crank it a little bit if I want 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch or whatever it is. So go ahead and shoot this. All right. Now, I will experiment with different f-stops. You know, maybe I want more depth of field, less depth of field in the background. Um, the view, maybe I want to change the angle a little bit here and there. So I'll do a lot of experimentation, a lot of different f-stops and play. And it's part of the fun of macro photography, is just experimenting and playing. And it's just a beautiful, nice morning. It's not too windy. Um, and so I'm hoping to do some more with this lens here today. So, all right, check it out. Laowa 15mm wide angle macro lens.